Good evening. Council members, will you take your seats, please? And welcome. Welcome to the April Committee of the Whole. I would ask you to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Olson will start with finance and personnel.
Welcome to the F&P portion of tonight's meeting. I have 4 items for public hearing. First one is 0125. Resolution for Common Council support of the City Vision Downtown Safe Cam project. I have 3 individuals wishing to speak in opposition of the legislation. First, I have Kevin Heinz, 104 Jennifer Lane, West Salem, Wisconsin. You have 3 minutes, sir. You have more?
Opportunity to come here and just let you know how I feel about these cameras. If you recall, I was at the committee meeting and I did mention there my experience with 11 years in the surveillance industry, working on camera systems of this type. And this is kind of a unique situation because it puts the cameras out on the streets. It's surveilling the public. It's kind of doing away with due process. To me, it does feel like Big Brother, even though, you know, we're saying that it's not. I guess I would support what we're doing now, and that is businesses continuing to secure their own facilities with their own camera systems instead of doing one large system. This is not the country, I guess, that I want to leave for my kids, one where we're suspect around every corner, where we're constantly being watched and surveilled. I want to leave a free country, one where our liberties remain intact. So that's my motivation. That's why I'm speaking against it, despite being someone who works in the industry. And I hope that you know, the city will see my points. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Next up, we have Greg Luce, Nokomis Avenue. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm opposed to the spy camera scheme. I contacted the ACLU a couple days ago. They are in opposition to camera systems like this, surveillance systems. And I passed around a sheet that they just sent me this afternoon. They're going to start looking into it. And all the studies that they have show that they're ineffective and they violate your liberty. So, and there's just something wrong about it when a private group, this Crosse Vision, makes a decision for the city. I think y'all should have made the decision and done it yourself and legislated it if you wanted spy cameras, not let some third party do it. So, yeah, I'm opposed. I think you should get rid of it. And if you do some research, there's much better ways to fight crime. There's much smarter ways to spend police budget than on spy cameras. That's it. Thanks.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming. You keep handing me paperwork up here. I'm getting lost in it. Next up, we have Mike Tellier, 123 Main Street, and you have 3 minutes, sir. Is Mike here? Okay. Next up, Eric Rathke, 2021 14th Street South.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Yeah, I rise in opposition to this. I too have spent, a couple of years in the security and surveillance industry. I do agree with the fact that maybe we need cameras. Okay, fine, but they need to be in business owners' hands. Because they can't be used all willy-nilly. It's a constant encroachment on people's liberties that I have the problem with. And you say, well, we're not gonna man them. How easy is it gonna be to have people man them? Pretty easy. In fact, I know for a fact that they could be ported to the police cars and they could use them in that manner. It's just encroachment on our liberty. And I suppose since we're protecting people from crime downtown, why don't we protect people from crime in City Hall? We should install cameras in City Hall. I mean, if you're not doing anything wrong, no one should have a problem with that, right? I mean, that's kind of the same thing. So, I think we're going to get a project started to raise money and for cameras in City Hall. Maybe some PTZs so we can, move around, and we'll give public access to them. So, the public can see what's going on in City Hall. Maybe we'll get one in the mayor's office, maybe the planner's office, and we'll see. It'll be interesting. And if this goes through, I would expect that you guys wouldn't have a problem passing that and making sure that goes through. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Next, we have Sam, and I'm not going to try and pronounce the last name, 2330 Adams Street. No, you don't wish to speak? Oh, he's registering in favor of the legislation. I'm sorry. And next we Mike Tellier, 123 Main Street.
Thank you for letting me speak. Since 9/11, this country has gone into more of a surveillance state. Recently, we just had the debate about drones on a national level. We're starting to go too far. The federal government wants to read our emails. They want to tap our phones without warrants. Patriot Act. People just stand by and don't have a problem with that. It's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Now the local government wants to get on those violations and start surveilling us. Just because you don't want to be filmed all the time by your government doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. And I'm tired of this excuse that, well, if you got nothing to hide, you shouldn't have a problem with it. I got nothing to hide in the bathroom, but I don't want a camera in my bathroom. So this is a real major step. And I don't care about the funding, if it's private money or whatever. To me, that's not important. What's important is the privacy violations and the precedent of setting up cameras everywhere downtown and having a couple of people in the police force monitor that. What's the accountability for how they're using that footage? There's just a ton of questions that I have about this. And, Mr. Police Chief, I know that you're proposing this and want this, so I'd ask you, is it all right if we install a camera at your house? I mean, if you've got nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem. Same with the rest of the council members. Let's install cameras, outside your front door. Can't hurt, right? Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none. And as I said, I had one register in favor of the legislation, Sam Siebenauer. And can I get a motion to close public hearing? He asked not to speak. Do I have a second for that? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion's, what is committee's pleasure? We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, on the board, please. And that passes 12-2 with no votes from 2 and 4. Next up, item 158. Initial resolution authorizing not exceeding $312,000 general obligation bonds of the City of La Crosse for Department of Natural Resources contaminated site cleanup loan. What? Don't I have to go to the public hearing first? Can I get a motion for a public hearing? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. First wishing to speak is Dave Ring, 1626 Oak Street, La Crosse, representing Quick Trip, and he is in favor of the legislation.
Thank you, Chairman Olson, members of the City Council. Dave Ring, representing Quick Trip, here tonight to speak in favor of the resolution, which is one of the final steps necessary to clean up this brownfield site and allow us to construct a 60,000 square foot, $10.5 million bakery freezer project, which is slated to commence on June 15th of this year. We are excited to move forward with this project and work with the City of La Crosse and the DNR to clean up a contaminated and blighted site, redevelop the site, create jobs, tax base, and improve the environmental conditions of the immediate area. Quick Trip wants to thank the City Council, Mayor Harder, City Planner Kirch, City Attorney Stefan Maddy, and the DNR for the support of this project. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Wishing to speak in opposition, William P. Scott, 111 East Wisconsin Avenue, Milwaukee. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Olson and Common Council. I'm here representing John Desmond. I'm a brownfield practitioner, a lawyer, a professional geologist, and I've cleaned up sites like this for more than 20 years. I'm here to say that I've read the plan and that it's a grossly, overly costly plan. It's neither necessary nor reasonable. There are far more reasonable ways to approach this that would save the city money. It would accomplish the objectives that Quick Trip would like to see, and there would be money left over to address other priorities. The problem with going forward with this plan is that because you're doing something that's neither reasonable nor necessary, when you go to the Desmonds seeking them to pay, they won't cooperate with that because they've been led to believe that there was a different arrangement. For 9 years they've been paying these bills. There was an understanding of how it would proceed, and yet in January of this year, they're presented with a plan asked to sign off on an enormous cost. It was totally surprising to them. And I have to admit, when I read the plan, I don't even understand why the work is being proposed. I can guarantee you that within 30 days, we will present far more cost-effective ways to accomplish the very objectives that people would like to see accomplished in a way that the Desmonds would feel comfortable participating financially. But if you go forward doing unnecessary and unreasonable things, and you need to try to use legal means to seek cost recovery, you'll be barred because you're limited to only the reasonable and necessary expenses. And moreover, if by performing that cleanup you increase the value of the property, you'll have to deduct the increase in value from the expense that you incur. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to work with the city. I have a consultant. We've done this before. We can do it again. We think that together we can come up with a much better plan. It'll be workable. It'll get you in there for far less money, and you'll be on target in terms of building the Quick Trip facility. I'll take any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Have a motion. Second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? And you had made a motion? Oh. President Connor?
Thank you. I move to refer this to Thursday night without recommendation in order to obtain legal counsel.
Did you also want that listed for? Okay. The motion is to refer to Thursday night with no recommendation, so we can bring in counsel and go into closed session with that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 163. Resolution approving second intergovernmental agreement for Park Plaza property between City of La Crosse and the County of La Crosse. And I have one individual wishing to speak in favor of the legislation. Can I get a motion, please? All those in favor say aye. Wishing to speak, Brian Fuchna, 322 23rd Street North. Fukuda, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As you said, my name is Brian Fukuda. I'm the Community Development Specialist for La Crosse County. And I'd just like to encourage you to support this legislation, support this intergovernmental agreement with La Crosse County to move forward on the development and the sale of a property that La Crosse County foreclosed on approximately 12 years ago. It's been sitting off the tax rolls for that long. We now have a developer interested in developing the parcel. They've made us an offer, and this agreement is really necessary for us to move forward with the negotiation of the sale of that property and the ultimate development. I think, again, this is kind of relatively simple agreement. I know we need to come to terms on the numbers in Exhibit B. I hope you have had some time to spend going over those and getting those right. We certainly want to get those right, but I think that the city and the county have the same goals in mind, and that's to see a quality development happen in a time frame that's going to move it forward and allow that TIF to cash flow and eventually pay off and retire. So we do have an offer. That offer expires on April 23rd, so we would encourage you to move forward with that. With it at this time, any delay could potentially jeopardize that offer that we have on the table right now. So I'd appreciate your support, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from the first district?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fukuda, will that be coming before the county board then on the 16th?
We still need to address the actual steps that it will take through the county process as well. But the goal would be to get this in front of the county board this month, obviously, as well, so we can come to terms on that agreement.
Being it is on Tuesday, so you're in a lot of time there.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to close, please? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. What is a pleasure? From the 9th District, Mr. Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At City Plan Commission, we were told that the city staff didn't have this document ready. I guess I'm going to ask Mr. Delgrave, from your end, is this document ready to go or not?
Mr. Delagrave.
At Thursday night's Finance Committee, they referred this to tonight, I believe, with no recommendation to allow staff to have a chance to look at Exhibit B, which is a portion of this intergovernmental agreement, which basically is the recipe to allocate the TID increment between the city and the county. And there were some questions as to all of the actual expenditures being accounted for. So we had asked for some time as staff to get together and put together a revised or updated Exhibit B, but I just received a number of documents today and have not had a chance to address those. So at this point, the Exhibit B that's attached, I don't think is a totally accurate document. I think there are some additional items that need to be addressed in Exhibit B.
Mr. Delgrave, would you have enough time between now and Thursday night's meeting to go over that and hopefully have that ready for the council for Thursday night?
I'll certainly see what we can do.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion to refer to Thursday night with no recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Item number 170. Resolution directing the Planning and Finance Departments to prepare the necessary legislation to extend TIF District Number 4 for 1 year to improve the city's housing stock. I have one person wishing to speak in opposition. Can I get a motion for a public hearing? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We are now in public hearing. Wishing to speak, Gerald Every, 2302 George Street. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, council members. I appreciate what you do. You've heard me talk about the neighborhood revitalization last week, and I want to talk about it again. We're hearing a lot about it now, and that is a good thing. In fact, in your 2013 capital improvement budget, you have several $1,000s scheduled for Hood Powell Hamilton neighborhood. And that's a good thing. And you also heard a presentation about exciting things that are going to happen there. And that's a good thing. However, using money that should be going back to taxpayers is a bad thing. This is crummy treatment of taxpayers. Here's the story. You have a TIF number 4, which would be paid off next year. For all intents and purposes, it's paid off now. You have enough money in that TIF to pay it off and be done with it. What they're talking about doing is taking that 1.1 million and using that for revitalization of the neighborhoods in a certain area. As a matter of fact, in the last few years, you've taken $5 million of tax proceeds from overperforming TIFs and given it to underperforming TIFs and or declining TIFs or using it for other purposes. Again, I say this is crummy treatment of taxpayers, and it may even be illegal. I'm not sure. So that's $7 million that could have been returned to the tax rolls. That would have been welcome relief to taxpayers on their taxes. You need to refer this until you get your study back. In fact, anything relating to TIFs, see where we're at and where we want to go. You have a new mayor, and you have several new council members. You've seen these figures. I've handed them to you. Put your eyes on them and witness that they're there. This is your own city report, okay? So now you know that they're there. You need to refer this until you get the study back of where we're going. Reduced taxes will do more to improve our neighborhoods than anything. In fact, in 2009, you transferred $1,063,318 out of TIF 4. In 2010, you transferred $1,099,076 out of 4, excuse me. Currently, you're pouring money into TIF 6, which is the next one to retire in 2016, and I assume...
And you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I assume that's to get that up to date. You're going to be told that the only other option is long-term borrowing, and that's silly. The TIF can't pay its way now. How is borrowing more money and putting it deeper in debt going to help? You need to stop propping up these underperforming TIFs and either decline to put more money into them or dissolve them. You have a chance now. You have a new council, as I said, as a new mayor. It's time to get a fresh start. Let's take a look at where you're at, where you want to go, before you commit these major dollars and step on your taxpayers again. You have a fractious
wrap it up,
relationship right now. Yes, sir. You have a fractious relationship right now with the city. The worst it's ever been. You can't deny it. This is the time to start over. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, can I get a, thank you.
Thank you.
Can
Those
I get a motion
retiring,
to close?
thank you.
Can I get a motion to close, please? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Councilman from the first district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Every. He brought up a lot of good points, and I will make that motion to refer. I'm not sure if 30 days are enough before we get that study back, but let's refer it for 30 days. We do need the information brought back. And I believe in the last 2 years of budgets, we did appropriate money for housing rehabilitation, and I believe it was $350,000. Not sure if any of that money had been spent. But there are implications of extending these dollars that were stated. So I think by referring this for 30 days, I don't see a problem with that, being there is a new council, there's a new mayor, as he said, and I think everybody needs to be on board with all the factual information. So hopefully I get a second on that.
I have a motion and a second. Do you wish to speak on referral? Mr. Schwantz? Yes. From the 17th, Mr. Schwantz.
Thank you. As we consider referral, I think it's just important to remember that this action isn't obligating us to anything other than having Planning Department and Finance Department study the implications of doing this and bringing back a report to us with a notation regarding what the fiscal implications of doing this are. We are not tonight committing to do anything but directing a couple of departments to provide us with information as to whether this is a good idea or a bad one. That's number one. Number two, I went online to the Oshkosh website and found this correspondence between their city planner and their mayor and council about this. And it indicates that the city would like to continue to work on neighborhood revitalization activities per the recommendations of its plan to improve neighborhoods. To that end, the city is already undertaking some revitalization efforts to meet these goals. They name the Near East, the neighborhoods, the target rehab, and so forth. In order to achieve any type of sustainable revitalization success, funds must be programmed and resources targeted. Then they go on to this. As resource needs outweigh funds on hand, staff must identify other potential sources of funds to finance these revitalization efforts. Wisconsin statutes permit the use of the final year. I mean, I've heard people talk about this is going to be something that lasts forever. It's a one-year deal. Wisconsin statutes provide a final year of tax increment to be used to fund improvements to housing stock. Incidentally, Oshkosh has taken that action. In addition to that, I just want to remind you that there are a couple of other things on our agenda tonight that bump up against this. We mentioned this at the recent Finance Personnel Committee. We talk about TIFs a lot here. I mean, and we hear about TIFs a lot. I'm sure you do, I do, we hear in this room a lot. And there's another piece of legislation that we're going to be considering tonight to essentially get a third party to come in and assist us in terms of analyzing our TIFs, in terms of helping the new Economic Development Commission. These are things that must be addressed, but I just want to remind you, I don't know why we want to table this right now, because it doesn't do anything but move us in the direction of finding out whether we want to do it or not. Thank you.
Mrs. Connor, do you wish to speak on the amendment?
Well, my question is, would you clarify the amendment that was made by F&P?
To refer for 30 days.
Thank you.
What's that? Oh. The F&P, was there amendment on F&P? I don't have that listed here.
Yes, it was. It was to provide fiscal
Does that answer your question then?
Yeah, that's,
No. Is that amendment on there, City Clerk? I don't have it listed on here.
And include fiscal implications of extending TIF number 4. That was added on to the bottom of the resolution.
Okay, so that is on there.
Yeah.
Mr. Becker from the 7th, or,
Thank you, Chairman Olson. Mr. Kirsch, we now have a motion on the floor for a 30-day referral. Do we run against any time deadlines by doing that?
Again, if we don't do it this month, staff is recommending that you go forward with this resolution and study all the implications of extending the life of TIF 4 for 1 year. So TIF 4 is set to expire. I think in my conversation with the finance director, if we're going to do this, the sooner we get it started and those funds into a neighborhood, if that's what the council ultimately decides to do, the better off we are. And that's in discussions I've had. Again, it's third party. I know Wayne has talked to some folks at the Department of Revenue of how it would work and things like that. And their recommendation is to, if you're going to do it, you should do it sooner than later.
Okay, Mr. Kirsch, what's before us tonight is not actually extending this for 1 year. It's a intermediate step. Am I correct?
That's exactly what Councilmember Swan said, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kirsch.
Mr. Apple, do you wish to speak on the amendment on 30-day referral?
I think so. I want to reinforce, I think, what Dick said here, and this does get to the amendment, but the resolution itself, I can't swear that I'm 100% in favor of it, but what Dick said makes sense. So this is just getting us some information so that we can make an informed decision. And so I don't believe we need a referral. We need to get the information as quickly as possible so that ultimately we can decide whether or not to literally extend that district for a year or not. Thank you.
From the 8th District, Mr. Sequist.
Thank you. It seems interesting to me that we started our evening tonight talking about neighborhoods with the Joint Neighborhood Project. During the whole this past political campaign, I think that both the primary mayoral candidates and I think probably all the council candidates, what they talked about were neighborhoods. This is an opportunity to do something, to at least see if we have one more opportunity to do something for the neighborhoods. As we all know, if we improve them, then we're going to be improving our tax base. And I think if we were not to consider this, it would be a crummy thing to do to our taxpayers.
Thank you. And from the 1st District, Andrea Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Delagrave, how much money was in the budget appropriations for 2013 for housing rehabilitation? I believe there was either 250 or 350,000, correct?
I think we've had 2 separate allocations. One for TID 14 was, I believe, 250,000, and the other one was citywide for 350,000.
And that's for 2013. And there was also money for 2012, and I'm not sure if you can quote that number, but how much was used out of that?
I think those were the 250 and the 350. I don't know which year, if they were in separate years or if they were in 1 year. I didn't have a chance to go back and look at that.
Has any of that money been used?
It has not been expended yet.
Say that again?
It has not been expended yet.
So why were we even doing this? Council, why are we even thinking about doing this? How much money, Mr. Delagrave, would we save the taxpayers if we give that back to the taxpayers, that money?
Well, we wouldn't
by
save,
not using that
we wouldn't
1 million.
save anything yet because I haven't borrowed for it.
I'm just saying, if you take that $1 million and spread it around to the taxpayers, That'd be quite a bit of, maybe it'd reduce the levy a little bit.
Well, we'd be allocating the increment would go back to each of the taxing jurisdictions.
That's right.
Versus
That's right.
for their appropriate share.
Right. So that's another reason, you know, I think this is a big mistake doing this. We had the 250, we have the 350, and all of a sudden we're going to spend time directing the planning and finance department, going through all of these hoops. For what reason? Makes no sense to me. Thank you.
From the 11th, Mrs. Connor, President Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason for this resolution, as I understand it, is that we need to look at the implications, the pros and cons of potentially taking this action. And it has been stated that there are several pros and cons. But by directing them to just look into and bring back a resolution to the council in relation to that issue. I mean, I certainly am very much in favor of taking the best interests of the city taxpayers into consideration. And that's why we need to vote knowing exactly what we're doing, only not with partial information. And in fact, I myself was not entirely sure whether I would support this resolution until I spoke with Mr. Kirsch about it. And it was clarified for me that this is something that we're preparing necessary legislation to extend District 4, but it is not approving the extension of District 4. And so it's only when the proposal is prepared that we can have the full information and the full impact. And so I would urge us to allow this at this stage. I believe the right thing to do is to proceed with this resolution, but then when it comes time, when we have the full information, then to make the decision whether to proceed with it or not. Because when you're dealing with TIFs, there are a lot more implications than just what this looks like, a bonus for the housing or not a bonus for the housing. So please do not refer this.
For the third time, from the first, does anyone have any objections? We have 1, 2, 3. How many do I have?
Where do you get the third time? Where do you get the third time?
I guess.
Excuse me, I referred it. I spoke on it.
All right, go ahead from the first district.
Well, all I'm going to say is, why didn't we do something with the $600,000, people? End of my story. Nobody has done anything. Are there a lot of houses that we did this last year? Larry, can you answer that?
Mr. Kirsch?
I guess I'm not sure what the question is. Yes, we've built 32 houses in this city. We have 5 for sale right now once the program gets started. We have had a staff vacancy for well over a year. I think you're aware of that. And so we haven't been able to spend the money because we don't have anybody to run the program. At this point, this resolution asks us to look at the implications of doing this. In my opinion, it's worth looking at.
But my question to you was, did we spend any of that $600,000?
We did not have the staff to do that.
That's not the excuse.
The answer is no. We did not spend it because we didn't have anybody to operate it.
I'm not going to get into an argument.
That's an excuse. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further discussions on the amendment? Seeing none, the amendment is for a 30-day referral. On the board, please. And that fails 14-2 with districts 6 and 5, or 6 and 7 voting in favor of referral. Is there any objections to the first changing the vote? Seeing none. I have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, on the board, please. And that passes 13-2, districts 1 and 2 voting no, and abstention from number 7. Last item I have is number 171, and I have in favor, in favor of the legislation, but only here to answer questions, Tina Severson from Oktoberfest. And in opposition, Dave Clements, representing the Crosse Area Convention Visitors Bureau. Are there any questions for the speaker, either speaker? Can I get a motion for a public hearing, please? All in favor, say aye. Mr. Clements.
Good evening. There was a question, is that?
Yes, I do, Dave.
Thanks, Fran.
I guess my question is just exactly why are you objecting to this resolution?
We work with Oktoberfest on, have been working with them for a number of years on different events, giving them more support the last couple of years. We will continue to do that. If you go down this slippery slope, you have created an opportunity or the issue of every organization coming to you and dealing with you having to address this. We are charged with the responsibility of doing it. We are a certified destination marketing organization. We present our budget to the Room Tax Commission and to the City Council every year outlining where these funds are going. I think it's no different than a city department that operates within the guidelines of a city budget and has the allocation of their funds. We tell you where the money's going in advance. And we are, I think, very responsible for what we do. The last thing is, 8 years ago, we were the 17th largest county in Wisconsin as far as tourism was concerned. That's not my number, that's the state of Wisconsin's number. Last year, we were the 12th largest. We have made great strides in the last 8 years. We've been very responsible with the funds that you have given us.